House and Development Program is an encyclopedia on housing matters.
The theme of the conference is housing as part of Africa's growth agenda, so the contribution of housing to the growth agenda. And the point that we're trying to make is that in the context of rising population and a growing middle class and very rapid urbanization, there's a huge demand for housing. Oftentimes we look at that and we see that as a pressing need that we can't respond to. The argument that we're making with this conference is that in fact it's a fabulous opportunity to promote growth and development and for housing to become increasingly a significant proportion of national GDP. So as economies across the continent are seeing a shift in the way in which they're structured, as commodities become less significant in the GDP of many countries, a shift towards residential development really could offer some growth opportunities because there's very many houses to build. And that could stimulate economies across the continent. Most of the developments that are happening at the moment across where there is residential development happening, it's targeted at the middle and higher income earners. But in fact, it's the middle and lower income earners where the bulk of the demand actually is, which means we need to build less expensive houses and think much more carefully about the kind of housing that we deliver so that it's affordable to the population. I'm talking here about entry-level and middle-level civil servants who currently cannot afford to buy a house that's being delivered by the private sector. That's an impossible situation. There are people who actually are earning good incomes and are able to contribute towards the cost of their housing, but housing is not being delivered that they can afford. And so we need to come up with much cheaper housing options, and that doesn't mean lower quality, but it means perhaps more modest standards, and over time people can then improve their housing. So a new family that just moves in, perhaps they would only need one bedroom. And over time, then they'll have children, and then they'll have a second bedroom, and so on. So they can improve their house over time. And it's very important both for developers to recognize that opportunity. And I'm talking here about a house for $20,000, maybe a $10,000 house. That's where the bulk of our population has affordability. And then for financiers to develop products that actually are suitable for those kinds of houses. Then in addition to that, we can look at the financing of housing. And in terms of that, it would be about, there are macroeconomic issues that impact on that. So what kind of interest rate that can be achieved with a mortgage is fundamentally influenced by the state of the national economy and what the interest rates are prevailing in the Treasury bill rates that would change the cost of funding for a mortgage lender. Similarly, so rates of inflation and all of that will contribute to the cost of the mortgage loan. So there are so many different places along the housing value chain where both government and the private sector can put through interventions that will change the affordability equation for housing. We have members across 16 countries, and we have networks with regional bodies such as the African Development Bank and the African Union and the International Union for Housing Finance and UN Habitat. Coming out of this conference, we're drafting what we'll call the Abuja Declaration for Housing Finance, and that will be agreed at our AGM tomorrow. That will become the document that then each of our members will circulate within their respective countries, and that will state our understanding of the housing problem, our urge to government to address certain issues, and then our commitment as the private sector to address the other issues. We'll disseminate that widely. We'll work quite hard to also get that into our delegations that are going to the UN Habitat meeting in Quito in Ecuador in October. And the intention is that some of our positions will be included within the new urban agenda that's agreed at that international meeting. Then there's the more practical considerations, and we'll work with our specific members about pursuing those in their countries. And that's really where the AUHF must become responsive to its members. And we hope that our membership is encouraged by the opportunity to use the strength of the union to then articulate those issues within their countries.